Welcome to the Infrastructure Podcast. My name is Anthony Oliver, and this week my guest is Milda Manomaityte, who stepped into the role of Chief Executive at the Association for Consultancy and Engineering and its subsidiary, the Environmental Industries Commission, in March this year. And according to the publicity at the time, her appointment signalled a gear change for the ACE Group and a strategic pivot for its role leading the sector. Clearly, that caught my eye. What indeed has Milda got up her sleeve to drag the engineering sector up the political agenda and into the 21st century? Well, given that the UK is about to be handed a new Prime Minister in the form of Andy Burnham, it seems a great moment to find out how an organisation like the ACE, which for over a century has been the voice of engineering consultancy, can ensure that this new administration makes the right decisions when it comes to the long-term planning and delivery of the UK's critical infrastructure and for protecting and enhancing the natural environment around us. Milda arrives uniquely equipped to meet these challenges. She spent the last 7 years at the Railway Industry Association, and we last spoke on the podcast 2 years ago about driving innovation, performance and digital transformation into that sector. So she brings a track record of accelerating technology adoption and navigating complex government-industry relationships. And at ACE, her predecessor, Kate Jennings, successfully elevated the trade body's political profile and established an ambitious 3-year business plan. Milda's tenure begins, therefore, at a watershed moment. The UK infrastructure landscape is being rapidly reshaped by the rollout of the National Infrastructure and Service Transformation Authority, NISTA, overseeing the 10-year infrastructure strategy and delivery of an ambitious £720 billion pipeline of work across energy, water, transport and, of course, housing. But the challenges are abundant. Project delays due to funding constraints and planning problems, huge challenges meeting our decarbonisation goals, ongoing lack of skills, and of course the looming threat of artificial intelligence threatening to soak up jobs across the entire design sector. So lots and lots to talk through. Milda, welcome back to the Infrastructure Podcast.
Oh, well, thank you for having me, Anthony. It's great to see you again and great to have a slightly different conversation since we had last time.
Absolutely. Well, look, let's talk about this gear change for the ACE Group. Then you took over, as I say, in March 2026. The board explicitly called your appointment a gear change for the ACE Group, coming off Kate Jennings' tenure, which heavily focused on political profiling. I mean, what does this operational and strategic gear change actually look like then?
Well, Association for Consultancy and Engineering over the last 10 years or so has gone through a lot of changes. I think I'm the 6th CEO in that time. So there's been a lot of leadership change with different people with different ambitions and priorities. However, you mentioned that our organization has been around for a long time. We have been incorporated in 1913. So the priorities of the organization were always to promote the sector and the profession of design, engineering, consultancy businesses and individuals working in that. So my goal firsthand is to just go back to basics, go back to those roots and really understand the purpose of our organization, the purpose of trade associations, and just to bring our team together, bring members together and just remind us why we're here, especially in this very interesting time where things are shifting, investments are being planned, there's a change of government. So we really need to just go back to the minimum viable product, as the people in the railway sector love to say that, and then see what we can do from there. So I'll start from not a very exciting place, but the ambition is huge.
But the gear change, it seems to suggest, Milda, that you're being challenged to actually get out there and really make a lot more noise about the sector and really kind of champion the expertise that we have around us. Is that not the case then?
Absolutely. That was one of the key things. My main priority is to strengthen the voice, champion our key messages. And the key messages are not, they're not necessarily unique or groundbreaking. When I start listing them, you will nod and say, yes, I've heard all of that before. However,
go on then, give us a list. Give us a list.
Give you a list. So I'll give you a bit of a story, and then we can kind of unpick those. So ACE was always lobbying before I joined, lobbying for an infrastructure pipeline, infrastructure strategy, a department for infrastructure that will oversee that delivery. And we do have some of the wins already. So we do have the pipeline, we have the strategy, and we have NISTA in the form of organization overseeing it. What we now need to really look at, well, first of all, we would like to protect what we already have with all of the political changes, but also just look at is the system, or how can we improve the system to gear the system up to deliver those ambitions. So looking at just capability, is the procurement set up to deliver the best value and for the projects? Do we have enough people working in the industry with capabilities and skills to deliver it? Is the risk managed between contractor, consultant, and client in the way that brings the value? Are we thinking about environment? So, how are we investing in these projects? So really looking at what can we do and how can our members support the government in delivering that ambition?
Yeah. Well, one of the things that caught my eye when I was doing a bit of background is that, obviously the sector contributes a massive amount to, up to nearly £40 billion a year to the UK GDP and employs nearly 500,000 people. Yet, one of the points you were making is that consultants are too often brought in too late or overlooked. How do you intend to, talk to us about that and what makes you say that, but how do you intend to use your platform to shift public and client perception so that engineering insight is valued right from the very start of project concepts?
Well, it all really comes back to the story we tell, the messages we tell. We early contractor engagement is not a new concept, and we have seen projects like the Thames Tide, where it really, really works. But we have these pockets of individual projects that delivered exceptional results, and kind of expect them to fix the entire system. And we do need to tell and talk about these projects.
Well, the ones that go right, the ones that go well, you mean?
The ones that go well. We do talk a lot about the projects that go wrong. And sometimes maybe we are fatigued listening to about the things, the mistakes we make. And there was the James Stewart's review in HS2 highlighted that actually if there was a better engagement, the design, sort of better design phase, more thought through, challenging some of the perceptions of the projects and some of the ambition, maybe, saying, are we all having these conversations, grown-up conversations about what is realistic, what is affordable, what is good for the communities around this project, then, the outcome would be better. However, we are all human, and if you only hear negative feedback from left, right, and center, maybe you become sort of blind to it or deaf to it. So talking about the success stories, we really need to think about it, but also think about how the behaviors. So, we're looking at how the risks are shared in contracts. And the behaviors there are not that great, but it's because the incentives are all wrong. We're all thinking about lower cost sort of projects and kind of keep pushing the cost and risk to someone else. So if we change the behavior, change the incentives, and change the perception of the relationships, perhaps that's how we actually start achieving some good results. Yeah.
Well, presumably that will mean working very closely with other bodies, whether that's the infrastructure client group or whether it's other contracting bodies. Certainly AC, just a bit more about the way that AC is set up. You're in the middle of executing this 3-year business plan. You've done a lot of work in your past around organisational transformation. Are there some key changes that you see rolling out at the AC? For instance, I know that the group encompasses the AC, but also the Environmental Industries Commission. Do you see those two groups coming a lot closer together, simply because the environmental outcomes are now very much as important quite often as the social and economic ones?
Absolutely. Our members work with environment in mind as integral part of their project planning. We have seen more and more conversations around how investing in nature and environment brings economic value. So we are really integrating those conversations. I do not see the organizations as separate or as separate sort of entities. We have done in the past year some work in integrating the memberships a bit more, and I will continue that effort, making sure simplifying, we lobby the government for simplified processes. We also need to look internally how we engage with the stakeholders. It is absolutely integral part, though, of lobbying for infrastructure or advocating for infrastructure and environment. We say, when you invest in nature decisions, it's not just a nice to have, it's not just a tick box or a requirement. It improves the lives, improves the health of people, improves the view of the people who make decisions if you bring sort of nature into the communities.
Yeah. Well, the reality is you've got a whole load of really expert expertise and advocacy, which is sitting in the EIC. So bringing that very close together with the ACE would be a logical thing to do. I mean, let's talk about the current industry landscape. I mean, right now, the industry is navigating really difficult financial situation. There's intense pressure for visible delivery of these projects. I mean, what's your overall reading of the market's health and confidence as we move through 2026? I'd say we've got the 10 years infrastructure plan, we've got a pipeline. What's your reading of how confident are you that can be delivered?
Well, there are some positive signs. We do have the pipeline, and I've heard that our members are already using to plan their resources and sort of the bids and the work and people as well. So that's great. However, we are hearing that perhaps that not necessarily translates into actual work. So I think the first week when I started in ACE, we sent a letter to the Chancellor asking to accelerate the projects that are ready to be delivered. We need that confidence. Just get the quick wins out. Don't think about the kind of ego, big ambitious projects, I want to put my name on this. Let's just move away from that and let's just start delivering projects we can. They might not be sexy, they might not be headline worthy, but it will deliver jobs and that work.
Well, building on that, I mean, the AC has just backed Chancellor Rachel Reeves' plan to limit judicial reviews and legal challenges for nationally significant energy, transport, water projects. I mean, how do you as an organisation therefore balance advocating for fast-track delivery with ensuring that there is robust environmental and community scrutiny?
Absolutely. So we think, it's like planning is not about choosing between speed and scrutiny. It's about delivering both. We do need to make sure that we get, as I mentioned, to get those projects out there and start delivering. But we also need to make sure those projects meet the needs, the planning needs and the regulational needs as well. And they are properly assessed. However, how to balance that? And I come back to that early contractor engagement, and not necessarily early contractor engagement between client and the contractors. It's also engaging the communities. So it's identifying the issues sooner, identifying the bottlenecks sooner, giving everybody sort of greater transparency of what is going on and what will be required from the projects, and identifying these potential frictions and putting people together who could resolve those frictions early. So again, I'm coming back to that, creating a system that is more efficient and more transparent and better capable to deliver the infrastructure needs.
Which I think also brings in this recent backing of your calls for backing by the Competitions and Market Authority, CMA, for a review of the road and rail civil engineering sectors when it comes to long-term pipelines and supply chain collaboration. I mean, I think the CMA estimated something like a 5 billion annual saving if we can really get those reforms of procurement sorted out. I mean, how quickly can ACE members expect to feel the practical benefit of these changes then?
Well, the immediate benefit is the confidence in the government if it responds quickly and gives the industry sort of clearer visibility of the actions and the future work. It's like we are reacting, we're taking the recommendations on board.
Yeah. You're telling people what's ahead of them so they can plan and put in place the investment required. Yeah.
And showing that this is not just another report that we'll put on the shelf and nobody will talk about it ever again. if all goes well, the bigger price will take a bit longer to kind of realize, and we're talking back to that long-term strategy. It will require a culture change as much as the policy change. We talk about procurement that is value-based, outcomes-based, that rewards collaboration, rewards sort of social value and investment in environment. Yet we're not seeing this happening. And again, we've seen this happen in projects, we've seen it talked about in the reports, but somewhere along the line that kind of breaks down. So it does require a culture change, and that does take a little bit of time. However, if the message is this is the right way to do it and we will do it, that confidence will be quicker than perhaps the implementation.
Well, it's interesting because the AC, there have been some wins, and you have got some really interesting points across the government, and the government has supported quite a lot of the campaigns that you've put forward. But of course, Milda, life's all about to change because we've got a new Prime Minister coming in to Downing Street, and his administration brings a deep-rooted philosophy of regional devolution and local empowerment. Things will change. I mean, how do you think an infrastructure agenda driven by a former Metro mayor from Manchester, as opposed to from London, will differ from past centralised approaches?
Well, we potentially will have a prime minister who is used to delivering projects. So that knowledge of what it takes to deliver a project, it's useful. And we might be moving from kind of a government that has created the ambition to a government that has to realise the ambition very quickly, so we maybe will be looking at those quick wins and really empowering the local authorities to deliver. However, again, we've written to Andy Burnham about the reinforcing our long-term ask about establishing the infrastructure department, because we do need that coordination of different regions, because what we might end up with at sort of locations with the mayor authorities might have a bit more expertise and resource and funding to deliver projects and be more advantaged from the places where there aren't any mayors. So having these different authorities to go to a single place and say, this is what I want, this is what it needs, and coordinating body to look after.
But the reality, Milda, is that that regional devolution means that your members, consultancies, are going to be dealing with combined authorities, are going to be dealing with a lot smaller bodies than perhaps just the Whitehall central government departments. I mean, is the industry set up to handle this more fragmented, localised procurement landscape, or does this risk creating some kind of uneven regional pipelines, as you perhaps indicated there?
That is the $1 million or pound question. We do tend to focus on specific projects, specific regions, specific problems, and not think about that sort of systems and how it all integrates, the system thinking. And again, even if we do think about a specific sector of, railway, energy, nuclear, water, all of these projects are interconnected. So even if the infrastructure is delivered by different bodies, we still need somebody who is actually thinking about the whole system and how it works, how it connects, and how it kind of feeds into each other, the knowledge, the skills, the experience being passed from one project to another.
Yeah, so that's where that centralised Ministry for Infrastructure would come in. I mean, certainly Andy Burnham's historic focus has been on regional connectivity, but also projects such as the Northern Powerhouse Rail, and he even talked about remobilising the northern section of HS2. I mean, from your background in railways, is that a good idea? Where should the government focus its immediate infrastructure spend?
Well, I would say focus on the projects that are already committed and ready to go. Again, as I mentioned before, we don't need more U-turns. We don't need more, actually, maybe, or how about this? We don't need money to be moved from one project to another. What we need is predictability.
Right.
People invest in projects that are predictable. I'm not even talking about certain now. It's just predictability, that we just need plodding on, just a pipeline of projects that are being delivered, and let's just get them done.
So even though these speculative bringing in new projects on board may be very good for the consultancy sector as they chew over many, many ideas, your view is let's get the stuff done that's on the pipeline first.
Get it done first, yes.
Okay.
Inject that money in the industry. Of course, we do need to think about new projects. Of course, we need to think about what next, and and how they all connect to each other. Again, I come back to that systems thinking. We can't just sort of say, "Oh, this is what we're doing," and there's nothing else to it. But once we commit to something, and once we say, "This is what we're going to do," let's just do it.
Yeah. Let's talk about some of the campaigns that you've got on the go there at AC and EIC. You've recently co-signed a joint letter to the Treasury raising serious concerns about Schedule 2 and Clause 72 of the Railway Bill. Now, you're going to have to talk me through this one, Milda, because it's not a specialist subject, but you said that it was warned it could harm investment certainty. I mean, given your transport background, I mean, how critical is it that Great British Railways is ultimately in charge of the railways nowadays, is given the autonomy to attract third-party private funding without constant centralised government ministerial intervention?
Yes, the famous Schedule 2 and Clause 72. I did talk about...
Tell me about them.
I'll tell you all about it. So it did all started while I still was working at the Railway Industry Association. It's really about how Transport Secretary can reopen the funding settlements at will and change the sort of how the railway projects or the infrastructure around railway lines are funded. So Schedule 2 would allow a future transport secretary to effectively vary and reduce 5-year infrastructure funding settlements at any time. And stable, visible, long-term funding has been the established basis for funding rail infrastructure. Now, the Clause 72 gives ministers powers over the management and operation of non-GBR infrastructure. So that's, stations, depots, and sort of infrastructure around that, freight terminals. So the letter is not against GBR. The letter supports the GBR as a guiding mind for the railway. The point is the difference between strategic direction and operational intervention. So ministers should set the outcomes and budgets, and GBR should be free to deliver against them and, get long-term deals with private funders to deliver those projects.
Yeah.
So the letter is highlighting those clauses and saying now is the time to think about them. The Lords are now scrutinizing the bill. And, if we do the amendments now, it's not going to be too painful, hopefully.
No, but it's a similar sort of thinking, basically. It's like, have a plan, deliver the plan, and don't keep going back and changing it for political reasons, which is what, goes to the heart of quite a lot of what you're saying, I suppose.
Yeah, I feel like a broken record on that one.
Okay, let's talk about another campaign. The EIC this time, they launched the Nature as Infrastructure 3-point plan, pushing to treat natural assets with the same policy weight as concrete and steel. I mean, how close are we now to getting the NISTA, the National Infrastructure Service Transformation Authority, and DEFRA to actually agree on a standard framework to measure and report nature's economic value?
Well, the good news is that the asks that we launched just a month ago, I think. No, actually, a couple of weeks ago. They have been agreed between NISTA and DEFRA. So that's a first start. And, we have seen some other announcements coming from DEFRA about investing in nature and recognizing the economic value for it. So that is the point of the ask. So it's a 3-prong. One is recognize nature as infrastructure, as you mentioned. Second is to increase cross-departmental collaboration. And third is to measure the economic value of investing in nature. So when we launched it, we have speakers all agreeing, saying this is a great idea and we should do it. So the challenge now is to move from this kind of consensus and agreement to embedding these approaches.
Yeah.
Watch the space. This is just the beginning of our campaign, and we will be, as part of that, bringing closer EAC, Environmental Industries Commission, to Association of Consultants and Engineering together, we will be pushing much more this agenda, and there will be some more activities around it.
Well, meanwhile, back at the ACE, you've got, and we talked about this earlier, you've got your campaign Design Early, Deliver Better, which argues that bringing experts in late leads to costly mid-construction redesigns. So what have you got lined up for the rest of this year to make this point? Are you going to be taking it to party conferences? Are you going to be taking it all in different forums? How are you getting this message across?
All of those things. One of the things, when we held a feedback session with our members around Nesta Pipeline, this was highlighted as a useful thing to have, is to understand where in the project lifecycle these projects are. And also recognizing the design phase in the project lifecycle as an important part of the delivery of the project, and a time where you can really reduce the costs and remove friction of the overall projects. So the campaign, we haven't launched it yet. We're starting it. So maybe I'm launching it here at the podcast as a first public appearance. But we will be, again, it will be part of our 3-year plan. You will be seeing hopefully some funky graphics highlighting the project life cycle. And so what we want to, again, to make it quite visual, and thinking, well, if you spend 10 years on the project, maybe a year of it should be spent on planning it, or half a year. I don't know what the numbers are. And similar with money, if you spend that amount of budget, maybe X% should be spent on planning to save costs later, and followed by the evidence. So we will be doing visuals, we'll doing party conferences, and the more we'll repeat it, repetition is the best form of marketing, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, let's talk a bit about you and you landing at the ACE, Milda. When we last spoke, as I said, you were running operations and innovation at RIA, Railway Industry Association, focusing on rail performance and ticketing. What was the personal or professional catalyst that made you decide to step away from a pure transport brief to take on this broader built natural environment portfolio?
It's an interesting one, because I've worked in transport all my career. I started as a transport journalist and then went through all sorts of aviation, maritime, rail, road, I think is the only one that I didn't really do. I really like the principle of associations and the mission of associations. I like that it connects people, and I like that it, especially within the reason I like transport is because it's a good thing to lobby for. It's a good thing to push. If we're all connected, we want to do that. What attracted me to AC is the wider aspect of infrastructure. So the difference that I see now between the Railway Industry Association and AC is at RIA, we were lobbying for one sector representing very, very different businesses. Yeah. At ACE, we lobby very different sectors, but representing a same type of business, which is a engineering and design consultancy. So you can really focus on what matters to the businesses, but also the issues that are facing different sectors. They're not that different. They are very much the same with, pipeline visibility, skills, procurement, early contractor engagement. You could lift and shift basically, and just plonk it anywhere. There's plenty of cross fertilization, cross transferable skills that you can bring from RIA to ACE. Yes.
Great. Well, welcome to the industry, I suppose, full time. Let's talk about some of the key sectors that you maybe will be tackling. And one of them, and I mentioned at the top, was AI and digital, artificial intelligence and digitalization. There is a wide range of opinions about what AI truly means for this sector. But the industry's basically built on billing for expert hours. So, how do you expect generative AI, for instance, and machine learning to disrupt the traditional business and pricing models of your engineering consultancy members?
Well, actually, it will go to my counterpart organization in Canada. They have published a very interesting paper around exactly that, how AI is disrupting pricing models within organizations. It will be disrupting, and we will need to look at different ways consultancies are engaging with clients. What we're currently working on is the responsible AI framework. And it's basically looking at how our members are applying sort of existing professional standards with additional care to this new technological context. Because what I've heard from our members, that some of the clients are so untrusting of the outcomes of any AI tools that they just ban use of AI in contracts, blanket ban. So the framework will be looking at how the consultancies can be more transparent about how the work is produced and how they disclose the use of AI where it is material. So looking at, if you used an AI tool to compose an email, then it's irrelevant. You don't need to disclose that. However, if a tool has been used to design a structural piece of engineering, then of course you need to show that you need to show how you came to that outcome. So you will need these very experienced professional engineers who understand the math behind it, basically, which does brings us to a challenge of the young, inexperienced engineers and how they get to that knowledge. And again, it will disrupt the traditional path of learning and of getting into the profession. You're kind of removing that, and you've heard that before, you're removing the entry level and going straight to the middle. So there will be a bigger role on the professional engineers in coaching the upcoming people. And, maybe it's a two-way coaching and mentoring, and the younger people can kind of help them understand the new tools. And just be mindful about how the tools are being used. So we're also calling for the ability to use AI tools being recognized as continuous professional development sort of accreditation. Right, we need to make sure that the outputs are validated and safe and traceable, and how we protect the client data and where the intellectual property lies. So the framework will be quite interesting and hopefully will be a useful tool to remove some of that fears around the technology.
When will that framework be out?
Very soon. Just I will repeat when I was at the RIA about the railway enhancements pipeline. It's soon. We are at the last stages of drafting. I think it's kind of within the designer. Okay. So we will see quite a few things coming out this year from AC.
Well, I will make sure we keep an eye out for that. I mean, building on that, of course, AC is also currently championing 5 critical policy interventions with the Construction Skills Mission Board, which I imagine draws on quite a lot of the stuff that's coming out of the AI work. I mean, the sector expanding rapidly into new markets like defence and green energy. I mean, where are the most acute skills shortages right now?
So we're part of the Construction Skills Mission Board, and there's a lot of talk currently around the skills shortages on that construction side of things, and we're naturally looking at the professional services and where that lies. Where we're seeing is, and what we would like to see is a national skills and competency roadmap for consultancy and engineering. So we can kind of really think about when the projects develop from one stage of their life cycle to another, how those people can be transferred from one sector to another. So we need to recognize the need and capability of people to think cross-sector and understand how it all integrates. So we should also look at the entries to the professional. I mentioned a little bit around AI, but also what are the other, universities, apprenticeships, career conversion pathways. We would like to see modular learning. I don't think there were ever days where you learn something and that's that, especially in the engineering world. And now when the technology is moving so fast, so modular continuous learning needs to be part of your profession.
I suppose it's also recognizing it's a systems approach that the industry needs to take.
Absolutely, yes. I mentioned systems thinking already. And we also want to have sort of better alignment of competency across frameworks and across frameworks within different institutions. Yeah. So similar language, similar kind of requirements, so we don't do the duplication.
Yeah, which comes to the third point on my little list here, which is around productivity and industrialized delivery, because that is really trying to change this current stubbornly low productivity that we see in the sector. by doing things differently? I mean, how do you think consultancies can better use standardization, data-driven and industrialized delivery methods? I mean, I'm talking recently to the new hospital program, for instance, is really focused on that kind of thinking. The contractors like Laing O'Rourke have been trying to take this modularized approach for quite a long while. But a lot of clients continue to treat almost every major infrastructure project as a bespoke one-off design. How do you change to this new way of thinking?
I think that is a big ask. When I speak to members, one of the biggest asks we have from members is the kind of a standard contract from the government that everybody could use with minimal interventions and modifications, just if you absolutely necessary need. However, the reality is almost every single project has a bespoke contract, which just creates that kind of delays and legal fees, and you have to rethink and then adjustments. So where the problem, it feels like that's a need that people want it or contractors want it. However, reality is not that. So it's understanding where the problem is. And I don't know it yet. I've found this in my new role. So, we will be asking, and we as ACE also produce our own set of contracts for SMEs to use. But it is a problem, but it would increase that sort of the speed of project delivery and reduce costs.
Well, again, I'll watch this space. I mean, I suppose finally, then let's talk about what your priorities are, what your vision is, and what a successful 2026 look like for you. I mean, beyond media coverage metrics, I mean, what are the hard measures of success that you are setting for yourself and the organisation?
Well, the main principle of our ambition is to be the organization that the government, whether new or old, comes to us for advice and consultation when they make those big decisions around infrastructure. We want to be in, as quote Hamilton, in the rooms where it happened. So that is the ambition. And of course, if we can deliver opportunity for members to voice their concerns and move the dial in the right direction, then that is the win.
Yeah. Well, finally, then, Milda, 4 months into the job, are you enjoying yourself at the ACE?
I am. I really, really am. I have friends who moved from director of association to CEO, and they've been telling me about the sleepless nights. Yes, there are some. I do think about it a lot, but it is so much fun. I have such a fantastic team helping to deliver. Half of these questions, well, probably 80% of the questions answered came directly from their lips. So I really have a wonderful team that is motivated to deliver. Actually, the members are fantastic too. I think as a business of consultancy, they instinctively understand the purpose of associations and communities and engaging with people. Yeah. So it's been wonderful, interesting challenges.
Well, it's interesting. You started off by talking about the history and the how long it's been around. Of course, that was the point of it all starting originally in the coffee shops of Victoria. So, Milda, look, it's really good to catch up again and to hear about your new role and vision at AC. Good luck with it all. I mean, there's certainly a huge amount for you to get your teeth stuck into there, but thanks again for sharing it, and thanks for joining me again on the Infrastructure Podcast.
Thank you very much, Anthony. It's been such a pleasure. We need to do this again in another 2 years or so.
Oh, we'll do it before that, hopefully, I'm sure. So let's get, once your feet are firmly under the desk, I'll come back and find out what's happening. But sadly, right now, that's all we've got time for on the podcast. But there is more in the pipeline as we continue to probe the big issues facing the sector. If you haven't done so already, do check out the Infrastructure Podcast website, www.infrastructure-podcast.com, where you find background information and all the latest podcasts to listen to and to share. So thanks again for joining us. Thanks to Milda, and I look forward to seeing you again very soon.